I feel like everywhere I go, I see information about how you need to be using AI, whether it's OpenClaw, whether it's vibe coding, agentic engineering, whatever it is. I feel like I see advice from everyone, everywhere, all at once, and it's a little exhausting. So I've been pretty opposed to vibe coding in general, but I had to come up with my reasoning behind it, right? Like, I don't like to just feel something. I like to understand why I feel a certain way. And for me, I think that I have been working on applications that I am also responsible for operationally. And it makes me nervous. Just like if someone said, "Hey, here's my code that I've written. Can we push this to prod?" I would say, no, no, we cannot. We need to look at it first. I need to accept your code into my circle of responsibility. And don't get me wrong, I know that vibe coding is a weird term because it's not really clear exactly what it means. So is it vibe coding if you just like ask an agent to one shot unit tests? I don't know. Is it vibe coding if you ask an agent to one shot a feature? Yeah, probably. And then is it vibe coding if you ask an agent to just like build the app? Like I don't care how it gets done, build the app. And I would say yeah. And that's really like the type of stuff that I'm really hesitant to put into production because when I get paged at 2 a.m, I'd like to know how things work so I can quickly troubleshoot and diagnose the problem and get back to sleep. That being said, that opens up a very big criteria of things that I do feel are okay to vibe code. So, as I do with most anything, I tried it. And I actually found a really good use case. So I want to share that today and just talk a little bit about why I chose to vibe code this project. And yeah, so let me just pull it up and I'll show you the prompts that I went through. I'm using Claude for this. They have a really interesting interface where you can you can vibe code on Claude.ai, or you could just normal code on Claude.ai or prompt on Claude.ai, I guess. Sorry if it sounds like I'm stumbling through my words on this. It's maybe because I don't know exactly how to talk about some of these things fully. But the point being, I gave it a brand new project. I said, hey, this is a brand new repo. The goal is to create a post-production pipeline for my YouTube videos. This is where I already start to say, okay, this is acceptable for vibe coding. This is just for me. I am not putting this in front of users. I'm not asking anyone to pay for this. There's no liability that I am claiming on this, things of that nature. I don't have to worry about being paged. The worst case scenario, it is open source. If someone downloads it and it doesn't work for them, they file an issue. So yeah, I want to take the edited video in as an input, leverage DeepGram for transcriptions. If you've been with me for a really long time, you've probably seen a video on my channel about me doing this with Python originally, and I'd like to continue doing that. I stopped when I moved my post-production pipeline from Mac to Windows, and thankfully my channel had gotten big enough that some of my bigger videos get auto-transcribed by YouTube, but not all of them do. So I wanted to do that again. And then I also want to use some summarization technology, and I said DeepGram is great if supported to generate the following outputs. Video description with keywords. Spoiler alert, this has not been good. So I have not been able to fully replace the video descriptions yet. Maybe I'll find a way to do that. But the ones I've reviewed, which are all of the ones that I've generated, were not satisfactory. YouTube chapter with timestamps. This is really helpful. Someone left a comment on one of my videos a couple days ago and said, hey, you have a 4-hour video with 0 comments. It's because you don't have timestamps. I'm not sure if that's why. It was a VOD from a live stream that was very active at the time. But no one commented on the VOD, but I don't know. Yeah. I wanted that transcription, so mentioned that up here. And then let me just make this a little bigger. There we go. And then I just prompted it and said, anything else that you feel is relevant? Thumbnails would be great, but I'm not sure how to even approach that. Spoiler alert, it did not do a good job with this, but that's okay. One more thing, I've been really busy. So you might be wondering why this interface? Why am I choosing to do this via the web, via a prompt, as opposed to like a terminal or an editor like VS Code or Z or NeoVim, whatever. I've been really busy lately, and part of the appeal for me doing this experiment was, can I do this from my phone? Can I start this at my computer, and can I just kind of nudge it along as things are going throughout my day when I have downtime? And yeah, actually, I can, and it worked really well. So I gave it this prompt. It ran some agents. You can kind of look at what they're doing. This might be interesting to you. It might not. Like, it noticed that it's a fresh Git repo. There's a proxy here. I got to make sure that I don't show anything that I shouldn't, but there's no secrets or anything I don't think that would show up here. So nothing to be worried about there. You can see it start to write the plan. I wish it showed the plan, but it came up with a plan, and it was pretty well thought out. And I just approved it, and I said, yeah, let's try it. So, yeah, one of the things that it, did I mention this? Oh, yeah, here it is. Okay, cool. Here's the plan. So the repository is empty. It's a greenfield project. Let me now design a thorough plan implementation. So here you go. Here's the plan. So it decided to use a GUI framework, which is nice. Somewhere at some point, I don't know where, I don't see it in my prompt. Maybe I had like pushback on the plan, and I mentioned specifically that this needs to work reliably on Windows, and it needs to have some GUI. So it ships as a pure Python package. There's no system Qt libraries needed. Looks modern out of the box. Like, I don't know, if it looks nice, that's great. Yeah, no web server process to manage, no browser required. Looks good. Drag and drop. I didn't ask for that, but it seemed to think that was a good thing to add. And to be honest, I use it all the time. So it turned out pretty well. Uses FFmpeg for audio extraction. All this to say, like, it's something that, like, if I really wanted to, I probably would have ended up building something very, very similar. I don't like Python, so Python was actually probably a really good choice for this. And a benefit to vibe coding this was that I didn't have to write any Python, and I have, a Python application that works fairly well for me. So you can kind of see how it started to outline this project. So there's core, pipeline, audio extractor, transcriber, post-processor, output writer. And I guess worth mentioning, I have read through most of these files at this point. So I guess that maybe would go against the definition of vibe coding, maybe not, I don't know. But the point is that I wanted to make sure I wasn't risking accidentally, like, removing a file that is, my C drive or something. So I was just auditing for security more so than anything else, not so much code quality. Again, I don't like Python. All Python code looks bad to me, so I'm probably not a good person to audit the quality of Python code. But yeah, so it produced some of this stuff, some of the GUI. It was broken out fairly well, so different generators for different things. There was a caching layer that it ended up creating. It created some tests as well, and then a script to build the exe. It gave me some key data models that I looked through, and I was like, yeah, these seem fine. Some interesting things here. So it has like stage 1, stage 2. This ended up not being correct at all. So you'll see the prompts here where I push back on that later. But you can see here's roughly the idea of how it should do chapters. So 1 frame per chapter using a boundary like so. Yeah, stuff like this. General layout of the application. I'm showing you this on my Linux laptop. So I actually can't run this on my Linux laptop, to my knowledge, unless I threw wine at it or something, maybe. But I'll try to get some footage from my actual desktop that all of this stuff is going into, and just show you the application as well. But yeah, it looks like this. There's not too much more going on. It does take in a DeepGram API key. It takes in an OpenAI API key for summarization. And then ultimately it ended up being used for chapters as well, and got much better output once I did that. Some information on how you can use this stuff. It's just like, if you've prompted with a plan before, this is probably something you'd expect to see. But I will say that, honestly, this was pretty thorough compared to what I was expecting. So it was kind of nice to see. It seems like it didn't cut corners, which I was a little afraid of. Let's see. Yeah, some more stuff about the plan, some more stuff about the plan. Okay, so I approved it. It started writing, it started doing all these things. So we got like a pie project, we got requirements, we got dev requirements, 26 more files. We're not going to go into all of these, but you can kind of get the idea. There's like file utils, and it's doing some stuff here to help make sure that files are safe or they're named safely, all sorts of fun stuff, right? Then the GUI layer separate, updated the README. Everything's committed and pushed. It was 2,400 lines of Python over 39 files. I was shocked at this point that it was just done. Like this was not very long at all. I think this was about the time that I kicked everything off, went away on my phone, got a notification that the plan was ready, approved the plan, and then shortly after got a notification, like minutes after, got a notification that it was finished. So yeah, it gives you some information on like how to get started. And then I just asked, because I was no longer at my computer, how, like, can you validate that this works? It mentioned it can partially validate it. And I guess worth mentioning, there's like a sandbox here. I called this Reckless 2.0 because I had no idea what I was getting into. But there's like a sandbox cloud environment that this stuff runs in. So it does have the ability to do things like running tests, for example, but it like no display server and no keys. So I think around this time it wrote some tests, and then it ran those tests and gave me some level of confidence that it was able to do some things. It told me what it was and wasn't able to validate. And then specifically like the not testable stuff here was stuff that I was going to have to validate. So still away at this point in time. It did call this out too. I'm not sure if I specifically asked. No, but I generally tend to ask like, what are some gotchas that I should be aware of? And one thing they mentioned, Deepgram summarized V2 and detect topics are intelligence features. So confirm that they're included in your plan tier. Okay, so I'm still away. So I mentioned, please set up a GitHub action that builds a Windows runnable artifact and releases it to GitHub releases. Be mindful about the release name. We should support commits to main and also tagged versions. So it's set up like a nightly build, and then there's also a tagged build, which I probably should cut a tag at this point because it does work fairly well. Spoiler. Some modifications to our git ignore. Set up that workflow. Like I mentioned, nightly and tagged. Uses PyInstaller. Some information on how that's used here, if that's relevant to you. I was curious if I could get it to commit directly to main. So it like at this point in time, these numbers were very, very high, and they were just hanging out up here. So I said, feel free to commit this directly to main. It was able to, which was great. Then I prompted it to audit the code that it's generated and review it carefully. What could it improve? It audited. It came back with some stuff, and then essentially had some crashes, some deadlocks, dropping short paragraphs, more crashes, all sorts of fun stuff. It updated its to-do list with all of these fixes, and then created those fixes, and then ran the tests again. So you can see it gave me a summary of those fixes and what and why. At this point, I'm home. I downloaded the exe and tried to run it. This was after looking through to make sure that I wasn't going to blow up my system by executing this exe. But yeah, it does produce an exe, so I downloaded it and ran it, and did run into an issue. So this was allegedly a PyInstaller bundling problem, so it talks about that, how it tries to fix it, how it talks about pinning the Deepgram SDK to prevent future major version breaks, silently getting bundled, blah, 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 telling me about the root cause, the fix, all of this stuff. Just try this again, getting this issue now. So I guess what I'm trying to highlight here is that I was able to just kind of like start a prompt and then use the thing and be like, this is broken, like go at it. Like I'm not providing a ton of information. I wasn't like, I downloaded the app and I double clicked the exe well, that's exactly what happened for this to break. But I guess what I was getting at is like, if I were to need to give this more thorough instructions, I don't think I would have been like, I did this and then this and then this and then this, and then it broke. Like steps to reproduce, I've just kind of been throwing it at this just to see how it would handle it. So it mentioned the directory changed, errors identical. Yeah, so does some web searching, load some tools, find some more information, separate issues, runtime API change, fun. Seems like something that should have been caught, and if we maybe used a statically typed checked language with the compiler, that probably would have been caught sooner. But yeah, I do think that's interesting, right? So like this example here, it's trying to call something that no longer exists. Maybe that's a sign that there are better languages, better tooling for these AI tools to use instead of dynamically typed language, because this would fail to compile, and then in theory, it could run a compile as part of its checks, and then see that it failed and hopefully fix the things ahead of time instead of me downloading a new exe and saying, "Hey, this didn't work." So yeah, it mentions this was broken. This is the new. Still getting a very similar error. Collect all clearly isn't solving. So it ends up realizing that like whatever it's trying to do is not working. And then it ended up doing something kind of interesting. The part that I thought was really neat was at some point here, it abandons their SDK and then just ends up doing an HTTP request to post things directly. I don't remember where that's at. Oh, down here. So we get much farther. I mentioned that I'm getting logs at this point, but it says that FFmpeg is not configured at this location. This is my bad. I didn't realize I needed the full path. I thought the bin path would be sufficient. So it ends up fixing that for me. So if you just give it the bin path, it'll look for the exe inside of it, which nice. What else? Yeah, so this deepgram constructor change, the API is now keyword only. The API key is now keyword only. So it starts to work on this. And then I mentioned I ran into more issues. And I think at this point it gets frustrated and it's like, I'm just going to do REST instead, or network requests. I don't remember exactly where we landed. But similar issue again. So I've just told Claude it's causing me issues. And yeah, the fix is to stop fighting it. Drop the SDK import entirely and call the deepgram REST API directly with URL-lib. Okay, this is important. This is cool. This is one of the highlights in my opinion. I could figure out how to use deepgram's SDK to do the things that I need to do. But if there was actually an issue with deepgram's SDK, which I don't think there is, I think it was how Claude was trying to use it, and I needed to like do this directly with URL-lib and post files, like massive audio files. Like I guess what I'm getting at, I could figure it out, but it would be way more difficult than I would have expected. So this was an interesting case where like the tool took a different approach that I would not have taken, and I would not have taken it because of the friction. But Claude does not feel pain and suffering like I do, at least to my knowledge. So it doesn't have such an issue. It's happy to just go YOLO push code to do REST API stuff directly. Yeah, so it pushes again. We get some progress. I mentioned that there's some issues. It fixes those issues. I'll speed up a little bit because we're through the meat and potatoes. This is basically me just going back and forth. So it starts to use an open API key after I mentioned that I've added my open API key. Oh, I'm sorry, OpenAI key, not OpenAPI. But it looks like chapters may still be via deepgram. And I mentioned that it's just not doing a very good job. So it makes some changes there to make sure things do work with my OpenAI API key. And then I just asked, because I'm paying with an API key for usage. So I said, how is it used in the current app? So it gave me some information about chapter title refinement and YouTube description, which is A-okay with me. Prompted it to push to main. And then I grabbed the output item from a recent video I used. This was the Zig Juicy Main video. So if you've seen that on my channel, you have some context. This is weird. I don't know what this is. Unlock the secrets of project merging with Juicy Main. Dive into the fascinating journey of merging the Georgia and Maine projects. I have no idea. So yeah, weird hallucination, right? Like super weird hallucination. We explore the intricacies of merging complex projects, focusing on the strategic integration of Georgia and Maine into the new Juicy Maine folder. What in the world is it talking about? So a bunch of nonsense. well, not all of this. Like some of this is actually pretty accurate, right? So, our expert speaker. I wish it wouldn't call me that. It's a little weird. But Andrew Kelly's proposal. I think it misspelled his last name, but how would they know? Um, Default IO implementations, streamlining projects. Like some of this is pretty good, but also specify the specifics of Juicy Mercedes, Zig, and project directory, as well as insights into me, folder, Zon, and Zig version updates. What? Yeah. So, anyways, I was like, some of this is very accurate, but the first two paragraphs make no sense at all. Georgia, Juicy main folder, that's not a thing. Any idea how this happened? And it gave me some advice. It's like, hey, this is probably because DeepGram misheard a technical term, which is helpful. I don't really know how to solve that at this point, but yeah. And then there's some other stuff here that it mentions, but it gave me an idea for a fix, but ultimately says that, like, the struggles with proper nouns and technical jargon, so those would become facts from GPT 4.0 or 4.0's perspective. And yeah, who knows how it would turn out. So anyways, all this to say, I have this tool, and it works, and it was vibe coded, and I don't feel bad about it. And again, maybe it's important to reiterate why I don't feel bad about it. This is a tool for me. It's a bespoke piece of software that solves my specific needs, and it's open source. So if it does end up solving someone else's needs, they can use it too. That works out great. But the whole point there being that it's just for me, right? I'm not selling this. I'm not promising uptime. I'm not putting anyone on call to deal with the code that has been shipped here. I am not liable for issues. It's open source. The license mentions that, I attain no liability, all of that. So I guess what I'm getting at is, like, I think this is actually a really, I don't know, I would say good, but it's definitely an interesting use case where I think vibe coding makes sense to try. And I'm happy I did. This is a tool that, I was able to build over the course of a day over the weekend, and get things working fairly well. And yeah, I don't know. I guess maybe the key takeaway here is, if you are like me and you have become more and more perpetually online as time has gone on, and you constantly see people saying you have to do things this way, this is how you have to vibe code. If you're not one-shotting Ralph Loop hashtag on God for real, you're not doing programming anymore. Whatever people say, forget that. Figure it out for yourself. Do what works right for you. If you want to try vibe coding, try vibe coding. Think about it afterwards. Think about why it makes sense to vibe code something. Does it make sense to vibe code something? How does it make you feel? There's psychological impacts to doing this stuff. If you spend your entire time doing this, maybe your skills won't atrophy, maybe they will, but I bet your motivation atrophies. And the next time you find yourself opening your editor, you will probably have issues where you are finding it difficult to go in and write code and thinking, well, I could just prompt Claude to do this. Well, I could just whatever. Sorry, I'm rambling a lot. I thought this was a neat use case. The key takeaway I really wanted to drive home is that it's okay to do these things. It's okay to try them. It's okay to experiment. But with every good experiment, you should look at it in retrospect as well and say, what worked, what didn't, why did I enjoy this, what did I not enjoy about this? How does this fit into my workflow? I think that's it. Thank you so much for sticking with me, and have a great day.